Hi, I'm Ash from Droning On, and in this video we'll be looking at a brand new FPV budget headset. This is the Eachine VR D2. It has a 5-inch screen, an inbuilt raceband diversity receiver, and even an inbuilt DVR. It costs less than $130, which is about £100. So let's see if it's any good. Enjoy the review. So this is going to be quite an interesting one. Remember that we're unboxing the Eachine, I think that's how you pronounce it, D2 VR 5-inch headset. This has come from Banggood. It's available from all good retailers. This is exactly how it was packaged for me. So let's open it up and see. So in the box, let's have a look what this looks like. Really compact little box, everything is crammed in here. We've got an instruction manual, we've got some wet and dry wipes. We've got two antennas here, a flat panel and a mushroom style. And the thing that I notice immediately is the connector on these antennas. It's an RP SMA. So if we compare that connector to a Fat Shark antenna, you'll see that this is an SMA, not an RP SMA. So something to note, if you wish to use any of your existing antennas with this headset, you'll need to probably buy an adapter to convert SMA to RP SMA. There is the battery, and we've got a 2-cell 2200 milliamp. That's quite a big battery for a headset when you consider that the Fat Shark headsets come with only a 1000 or 1300 milliamp battery. Power adapter, as we expected, the power adapter to charge the battery has an international plug. I think that's a US plug style. So we simply need to use our adapter there. And there's the headset. So bearing in mind just how big this thing is, it's quite heavy. So it's about 300 grams if you compare that to the Fat Shark goggles, which come in at about 150 grams, the Dominator V3s. So it's about twice the weight of a standard Fat Shark headset. Looking around the goggles, they feel fairly well made actually. The quality isn't so bad. There's a tiny little mark there, but it's nothing significant. Overall, they don't feel so badly put together. So, inspecting around the goggles. So we've got on the top here the power cord. This is going to the strap, and the concept with this headset is that the battery fits into this little holder on the back, which then sits on the back of your head. So this power cord goes to the battery. We've got the two connectors for the antennas. Note again that these are the RP SMA type. So when you're buying antennas for this, or you're buying this to use with existing antennas, double check the connectors on yours. Got an SD card port here. This does take a maximum 64 gig SD card, which is good, so lots of capacity there. On the front, we have the controls. So we've got a little LCD display here. I believe that's where the current channel is shown so that everyone can see what channel you're using. The set of buttons here. So we've got frequency, or band at least, and channel, I guess. And then we've got the DVR controls along the front here as well. We'll test those out later. On the sides, we've got the optical or focal adjustment sliders, so that's for adjusting the display depending on your eyesight. And then if we look inside, so there is the display. It looks like there is a display protector on here at the moment. Yep, there's a bit of plastic film to stop that display being scratched. And there is the display. I'll show you a proper close-up of that later, but if I slide these forwards and backwards, you can see there is quite a lot of movement there. So there's a good focal range adjustment. I would say, however, these sliders don't slide particularly smoothly. That's the only point at which this headset feels cheap. Just looking underneath the headset, there is a tripod mount point here, so that's quite good. If the weight of this gets too much on your head, you can drop it onto a tripod mount and look at it that way instead. So you could use it like a regular screen with a sunshade on it. This does support diversity, so it has an inbuilt 40-channel raceband receiver, which does cater for diversity. Hence, it will automatically switch between the two antennas, whichever's getting the best signal. And I believe there's an indication. I think these two tiny little holes here are LEDs, which will tell you which antenna is currently in use. Around where your face actually comes into contact with the FPV headset, there is also a foam padding insert here as well, the type that you also get on the Fat Shark goggles. It's not particularly thick, and it's also worryingly not replaceable. So you might want to consider attaching some Velcro on here and perhaps shaping a mask of your own. Bit worrying actually, and a bit of a shame that this is not replaceable, because clearly these do wear over time. So as I mentioned, these weigh in at 300 grams, which, and just for a size and weight comparison, here's the Fat Shark SEs, which weigh in at about 150 grams, so twice the weight of these. They are obviously much bigger than standard FPV goggles, and the screen is always going to be, of course, but it's not really fair to compare these directly, because flying with a screen is obviously a very different experience to flying with goggles. It really is down to personal taste. So we'll now test the fitment and the quality of the screen. I've got a small test rig here, which is a little 600 TVL camera and a transmitter with an antenna on the end. That's transmitting live now. So we'll power up the headset. First task is to install the battery into the back. Now I don't quite like this vertical design for the battery, because the battery can slide up and down regardless of how tight you try and get this. So I prefer that to be horizontal, but anyway, the cable goes over the top, so over the top of your head and into the power source. We've got a beep there as it warms up. So that's now powered up immediately, as you can see, and I'll show you the screen properly in a bit. So we've only got one flat panel antenna on for this test, so the diversity receiver is flicking between the two channels already. So despite the weight of 300 grams, it does feel quite light on the head, but I must say immediately, this is not the comfiest headset that I've ever worn. It feels like the bottom of the headset is digging into my cheeks here. So as I said earlier, the foam faceplate isn't replaceable. For that reason, I would actually take this off, Velcro around it, and put perhaps a custom bit of foam around there to make this more comfortable. We have to remember this is a budget headset, so perhaps I'm expecting a little bit too much. The screen is very good quality. It's nice and sharp, the colours are great. They are all adjustable, so via the buttons along the front here, there is a menu switch, you've got a power on and off switch, a DVR on and off switch, and you've got channel and band controls. So if we press, the buttons here are for flicking through the DVR clips. We've then got a power button, which is to turn the screen on and off. We've also got a menu button here, so this cycles through different settings. So I've got brightness, contrast, color, hue, zoom to change between the aspect ratio of 16:9 or 4:3. And then I've got a language setting as well, and a reset. So quite a few options there for adjusting the display to suit the weather and the climate in which you're flying. And finally on the left, I've got a switch here to switch between the DVR mode and the live feed. So I've got AV1, AV2. If we then look at the controls above, we've then got the settings to switch between band and channel. So as you page through, you can see the small LCD display on the front here also shows an indication of what they're currently set to. Disappointingly, there's no real-time display of the band and channel that you're currently set to on the screen inside. So you do have to take the goggles off to look at the LCD display on the exterior. So overall, the screen is really nice quality. It's a really good screen inside there. It's just a shame that the actual shape of this mask is not particularly well thought out, and that these parts here really do seem to dig into the cheeks. Maybe I just have a funny shaped face, and it'd be interesting to get your comments if you've also tried this mask, but it is a budget mask, so ultimately it's under $100. You could easily customize the foam here, or even customize or tweak the shape of this. It's very thin plastic, so I see no reason why you couldn't make some minor adjustments to it. This headset is a diversity headset, and so it supports the attachment of 2 different antennas. And basically the diversity mechanism within the video receiver automatically switches to whichever antenna is receiving the best signal. So behind the camera, I'm moving around the video transmitter, and you can see that the diversity receiver in the headset is automatically switching between the 2 antennas as I move it around. When looking at the TV screen in the headset itself, the switch is very seamless. There is a small blip, but it's virtually unnoticeable. And certainly when you're flying, it's not going to distract you. I'm now at the field with this new headset and my Walkera F210. I also have my Fat Sharks with me, and I'll set its DVR recording at the same time so as to provide this comparison. I have the RX5808 diversity receiver module installed into the Fat Shark so that both headsets are using diversity antennas. With the Eachine headset on, there is no visible light leakage other than a tiny bit around the nose, but it isn't distracting. The headset also feels more comfortable now, perhaps it's because of my excitement of being ready to fly. The picture quality from the screen is very good, there's no motion blur, and I actually feel quite comfortable flying with the headset. It is a really immersive experience, especially when you set the aspect ratio to 16:9. There is no visible stretching or image quality deterioration. It is worth noting that for this comparison, I've compressed the Eachine footage width to the same as the Fat Shark footage. In terms of signal, I'm really surprised the inbuilt receiver is doing a great job, and there's no visible breakup, although I notice in the DVR footage that the screen occasionally goes black. This wasn't the case at the time when I was flying, and so this may be a firmware issue. I am aware that there are some firmware updates made available for this headset, and links are in the video description. Using the DVR itself is quite an irritating experience, and the buttons could have been made far more intuitive. For example, to start the DVR recording, you have to first switch to AV2 mode, then press the arrow button to start the recording, and then switch back to AV1 mode to fly, because the lag you get in AV2 mode when the recording is active means that it's almost impossible to fly. To stop the recording, you then have to do the same again. I guess you get used to it, but it's a shame because a simple start and stop DVR button would have made it much simpler. There are also 2 additional menus in DVR mode, that's AV2 mode, so you press and hold the stop button and you'll gain access to the first menu, which allows you to set the recording resolution size, whether to record sound, and also the video time limit. If you then press and hold stop again, you'll get to the second menu, where you can format the SD card, change the language, reset the headset's firmware, alter the refresh rate, and change the video format between PAL and NTSC. It is worth experimenting with all of these options to suit your configuration. As an additional note, the headset does have an inbuilt buzzer, and as the battery of the headset reaches low level, the buzzer slowly increases in volume, therefore giving you a warning that you should land and swap out the battery. So let's summarise all of this. The headset costs less than $130, which is £100, and so it will have some negatives. It is slightly heavy, but not too bad when you're focused on flying. It uses RPSMA for the antenna connections, which may or may not be a downside for you, depending on what other kit you're using, and a simple adapter fixes the case anyway. The face padding isn't thick, nor is it replaceable. The headset is slightly uncomfortable because of that, but this could easily be fixed with a little bit of custom work. And finally, the buttons and the interface are just not well thought out. It could have been simplified massively. But on the plus side, this headset is really cheap. There's a great quality screen inside, as well as a really impressive receiver, which is just as good as the real ACC module that we compared it against. It also even has diversity and includes 2 antennas which did a good job in our test. It provides a lot of focal and optical adjustment via the sliding mechanism, and you'll get around 3 hours battery life, which is generous. And finally, it has an inbuilt DVR, which also does a fairly good job, besides the black glitching that we noticed on this comparison. So all in all, I'm glad that the headset's in my collection, and I'll be flying with it instead of my goggles from time to time because it is a far more immersive feeling experience for me. There is also less messing around with it. You just put it on and you can fly without having to ensure that the headset's aligned with your eyes, an issue that some people find with the Fat Shark goggles. The Eachine VR D2 headset is available to buy from various online hobby stores, links of all of which are in the video description. So there we go. This thing's not perfect, it's not refined, but it's only $130 or £100. Therefore, for a beginner or a novice, it's a really nice entry-level way to get into FPV flight. We hope the review was useful. Please comment below and click like. We'd also love it if you clicked subscribe so that you can see more future videos from us. Thanks again for watching.